Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. I apologize for the late start, everybody. Me and Kevin were arguing before the show.
Yeah, no,
We are fired up.
we accidentally got into the show content prior to the show and started talking about the debate and Vivek Ramaswamy and
I love Vivek. I love that guy.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to talk about that in the actual show, though, too, because we have some things that we gotta figure out about that guy, about whether or not we're going to war with Mexico.
And China.
And China and
yeah.
Ukraine, all the play. We're gonna have several wars.
We've got to have our wars, bro.
Yeah, someone we got to be at war with someone, no matter what. But anyway, so we're gonna talk about that, and then we'll talk about the situation out in Colorado with a kid who wanted to wear a little Gadsen flag patch on his backpack.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more to this story.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. And then if we get to it, maybe we'll talk about having a max age for politicians is another thing that happened with Mitch McConnell again. And,
Mitchy. This is crazy. This guy's losing. He's falling apart.
Yeah, so we'll talk about all those things. And of course, folks, if you're joining us for the live stream, love to hear from you. Hey, Shelly on YouTube, thanks for being here. And Shelly, I can't go to war with Mexico. My libertarian cousin lives there.
Yeah, we don't. Kevin and I are against war with Mexico.
Yeah, we should not, and not just because your libertarian cousin lives there, but for all the other folks too.
We have other reasons.
For your libertarian cousin's great, but lots of reasons not to go to war with Mexico.
I'm pretty anti-war. I'm pretty skeptical of some of the narratives going around.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to all of that and maybe more in just a minute. So we're gonna go in 30 seconds again. If you have something to say, if you have something to add, make sure you leave your comments, and if it's good, we'll put it up. We'll talk about it. So we're gonna go in 10.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. My allergies are acting up. I think maybe I'm getting reactive to the growing level of authoritarianism. I may, in fact, be allergic to authoritarianism. I think I am.
It's that's an understandable reaction, and I gotta be honest, Tim. The forecast is not good for that. That's
it's horrible, bro. Okay, so I guess we should probably talk about the Republican debate. We were gonna actually do a whole show, but I think you and I both were like, God, I don't think it's not gonna benefit either one of us to have a lengthy conversation about what we witnessed on that stage last week. The only guy that had any appeal to me at all, really, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So folks, thanks everyone for listening today, whether you're listening at WYSL or the Free Solution YouTube page, Free Solution Facebook page, the Kevin Wilson pages, the Tim O'Connor pages, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about Gadsen flags in Colorado. We're going to talk about max age for politicians. And so the title of the show is I want to talk about all the Republican stances on on war, and specifically war in Mexico. But let's talk about Vivek first, because I know he's the guy that appeals to you. He's interesting. If you haven't seen him, he's young. He's a bit trollish. He's funny. He has funny stuff.
He's anti-establishment in a way that is great. Okay, there's a part of him that's very entertaining. There's a part of him that's very polished at speaking. He's an impressive speaker. He strings sentences together quickly, rapidly. They look good. They sound good. he does a number of long form podcasts. And the first one I heard him on, I watched like Dave Smith's podcast with him. And I was like, all right, this guy sounds a little crazy and I just don't want to have anything to do with him. And he was having a hard time bringing he was playing this game of like, I've got this great knowledge about history. And it's like, I have special knowledge that no one else has. And it's like, all right,
no, you
kid,
don't, man.
I'm
Wait,
not buying that.
He is. You call him kid. Like he is a young guy. Was he in his 30s still? No, yeah, because he would be the second youngest presidential candidate if he won the nomination.
Yeah, 38. He just turned 38.
Major party candidate, at least.
Yeah.
So he's a young guy. I mean, he's been like this the CEO of I think a couple companies.
According to him and according to no one's challenged him, he started a couple of like biotech businesses that decided to compete in the big pharma arena with drugs that were like kind of off brand that had been kind of left to the wayside by big pharma because they according to him are curative, right? Like when we look at big pharma, we do see a lot of emphasis on maintenance drugs, and he says his pharmaceutical interests were along the lines of let's use these drugs that cure certain diseases, and he's a little bit cagey about it when you actually
he ended up selling like his portion of that company, and then it like kind of tanked afterwards.
See that? They couldn't run without his managerial talent, Kevin. That's what he's.
That's certainly a spin on it. That's if you're a Ramaswamy booster out there, that's your spin on it. But other people are kind of less happy with his role. But anyway, we're not like I want to talk policy, like not just like what he's done. I mean, like because to me, like I hear him say a lot of stuff, and he's been, to be blunt, a little bit inconsistent over the years. Like which you can change your mind on stuff. It's just he's a little bit strange about stuff, and the policies that he advocates in terms of like intervention, like foreign intervention too, I think is not good. Like I mean, like he had a great one liner from there, right? Where when they asked about going to war, I think what he said was like the only thing I want to go to war with is the administrative state. Which again, like the zingers, like dude's got zingers, great. Like he's got one liners. It's great. Like, and you hear that stuff is fun, but then you actually get him like talking about stuff, and it starts to make less sense. So like the Taiwan thing, right?
Oh yeah, he's not winning friends and converts there. And again, like his position on Taiwan is that, and it's very neoconish, right? And his position wasn't that different on Taiwan than everybody else's, other than he would stop supporting Taiwan at some point, and everybody else will maintain a more longer term war with China through the proxy of Taiwan, if at all possible. So, I don't know. Like, Kevin, that's actually a conundrum that I face, right? Like, does Taiwan have a right to its sovereignty? Is that an area? Like, I don't want to see the war in Ukraine. I don't like war. I think that NATO has contributed to the issues that we're seeing in Ukraine. Now, where's the libertarian answer? Like, do we back Taiwan? Like, what's the deal there?
I think we sell them things.
I think you're right. Very much.
So, all right. So, look, first we'll say like this is like my position on. Then we'll talk about like the other politicians. Like I'm a politician. The politicians at the Republican debate, like how they kind of took this, which, like my position on is like we, as in the U.S. government, should not interfere with other places selling weapons to Taiwan, right? Because they are de facto an independent nation, and like we should not care whether or not China gets mad about that. Sorry, it is a fact that they are functionally an independent nation, and China's like aggression and territorial expansion, frankly, in their region is bad. It's bad for the countries that get mixed up with them. And it's not just bad for us, it's bad for those countries. So like if it makes them mad, like to me, sell them stuff. That's the libertarian solution, is capitalism. So we should do that without like being overtly committed to coming to their defense and aid if China decides to act on any of that stuff. And then that is mixed up in we are, and this is how we're going to transition to Vivek. We are very, very much dependent on them for like microchip production right now.
Sure.
Like they have just so much of that capacity like tied up there that like a lot of our stuff would grind to a halt without their microchip production. And Vivek's policy is, I think, kind of like the worst of both worlds, where he says we will absolutely commit to defending Taiwan if China does anything now, because it's in the U.S. national interest to make sure that we continue the flow of microchips to the United States. But as soon as the U.S. builds sufficient internal capacity for microchips, we will drop them and China can do whatever they want. So he manages to take the position of both committing us to enter a war and also totally abandoning a country to the predations of an authoritarian government. Like, it's worst of both worlds to me.
Okay, I'll buy that. I think there was a distinct attempt to fearmonger our relationship with China, which I know has problems, and I know that China's production and ability to abuse its own people and human rights issues is a very real thing. But we're trading on a fantastic level with them right now. They are certainly our primary supplier. So of course I made the joke on Twitter that after listening to the Republican debate, I feel like we're already at war with China, and won't anyone think of the supply chain disruptions, which is okay. A very
Typical
libertarian
capitalist.
way, and it was a libertarian joke. That doesn't mean I'm discounting the fact that China can be a nasty, human rights violating kind of situation. That's communism, guys. Like, that's their hybrid communism. Capitalism involves perhaps enslaving the Uyghurs, perhaps, poor, according to Nikki Haley, poor environmental controls on their production and a lack of thought for their populace. So I get it, but Kevin, if we go to war with China, like
That's bad.
60%, 70% of our drugs come from China. Our maintenance and health drugs come from China. It would be a train wreck.
Not exactly. That's kind of an overblown thing. I ended up doing a show actually with a guy from the Cato Institute years ago. This is back when it was Radio Free New York, at Scott Lincecum, and we were talking about the drug subsidies for having like drugs produced at like the Kodak plant in Rochester, and whether or not there really was like a significant issue with domestic production of like pharmaceutical bases. And really, like, again, you have to go deep into the archives to find that one. But the answer is like, no, we don't have that big of an issue with it. That a lot of the stuff already is produced here, and it's just kind of a scare story that people throw out. Like, usually it's not to prevent war, like you're talking about it, but it's more either we need to nationalize everything, or like we need to subsidize everything, and usually those two end up being kind of mixed up together.
And then the alternative, one more alternative that's regularly offered, and I think I heard echoes of it on the stage last week, is we need to protect ourselves from low-priced Chinese goods by charging tariffs on them, and all of those things.
Trump's 10% tariff, which no one is like has the guts to actually like call him out for being like a massive tax increase.
Yeah.
Like, my goodness, it would be like, is the biggest proposed tax increase like from a presidential candidate that like is a major party candidate since like Lyndon B. Johnson. Like, it is absolutely astounding that the Republicans have become like the pro-tax party. It's ridiculous.
They call it pro-tariff, and it's in the interest of national security, and it's couched in those weird ways that they invoke racial animosity. And look, Democrats are just as bad about invoking racial animosity and fear mongering.
You ever hear Bernie Sanders talk about it? Like, it's bad, ugly nationalist stuff.
Yeah, it's fear. So look, I'm a big fan. Like, let's go to war with China and India, but let's fight them on a basis of the U.S. has a major manufacturer. We're the greenest manufacturer in the world, and we owe it morally, Kevin. We owe it morally to the entire world to lower. And I know, like, people are going to kind of go crazy. They think I'm nuts, but we owe it to the world to lower our restrictions on manufacturing in the United States. And we have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. And if we can keep these things in place are the cleanest production in the world. Let's own up to some moral obligation to be a bigger producer, a bigger player in the game. How do you feel about that? Like, there's me going nationalist and be like, but we get what we incentivize, right? And if we lower corporate tax rates, we'll have more especially when it's with regards to the manufacturing industry, we'll have more manufacturing. It's
so I mean, we can do that, right? Like, so we can like A, lower corporate tax rates, B, like make regulation like at least like easier to navigate, because a lot of stuff is like purposely obtuse in order to like protect the people who lobbied for those regulations. And see, like, also removing the tariffs, because a lot of these companies, like the advanced manufacturing side, like relies on cheaper materials from other places. Like it it's just like when we had the discussion around like, should we impose a massive tariff on like lumber from Canada, both to protect like American manufacturers? No, it made it more difficult for American manufacturers to operate because they were relying on that stuff. And where the American industry was like mostly fine. And same with like US steel production. Like, yeah, US steel is great, but sometimes like you don't need that for everything. And so it just makes everything else for all of us more expensive. It ends up being effectively a massive tax on businesses and ultimately on us as consumers when you impose these tariffs on people. And that's something like, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And it prevents like kind of like what I would call technological innovation in our own industries when they are not forced to compete or enter into markets that they see as profitable. Like they'll stay out of them because they're protected, or they'll stay in them because they're protected, and they won't innovate. And so we lose in a lot of ways with the protectionist attitude. And also, like, let's let go of racial animus when it comes to production. Let's compete on the world stage. I don't know. I think it would be great.
Yeah.
And no Democrat, no Republican is going to buy into what we're saying right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to be like, they're out to get us, like, kind of thing. And it's like,
yeah, you just don't understand how it works, or like, I mean, that's usually how, because you don't understand how it works, or you hate America, you love China, like whatever. Like, I'm not like, I've explained the logic to folks, like honestly, like if you start to pull it apart, if you start to get beyond just the like, we have to prevent others, like the mercantilist, like outdated, like thinking on this, once you start to pull it apart and see like what the actual consequences are, go down the line, see the ripple effects, that the intended consequences of tariff aren't the actual consequences of tariffs, then I don't see how you can support it.
That, and look, we're talking about consumption goods, right? We're talking about products that end up in people's houses. And I think if we are poor people and the middle class are struggling, regardless of what kind of wage increases they've managed to eke out over the last few years, all of those have been based on inflation. And you are most likely losing if it's actually compared to a real inflation rate, like if it's actually compared to what your core inflation stuff is, and then add to it the food and the gas and your home delivery of energy, like your propane, your electric. Those things have increased astronomically. Those things are not, guys, that is like, this is a fact. Those things are not included in anybody's inflation rate. And I think that that's a travesty. I think we're lying to ourselves when we're being lied to by the administration, which, guys, this has been going on forever. It's not just a Democratic thing, but I'll give Barack Obama credit. Trump didn't fix it. And we're still here lying about the inflation rate. That's a reality. So you're losing money against inflation. And so tariffs, protectionism, that all costs poor people money. It all costs the middle class money. The disappearing middle class, period.
Yeah, hurts people. But I do want to talk about the one issue I brought up in the title. Tim, should we be bombing Mexico right now?
I literally would prefer it if we didn't. Like, I want to be very, very
answer.
clear about this. I want to state it unequivocally that going to Mexico is a bad idea. That freedom is another possible answer to our problems with Mexico. Like, if we, on some level, stop the war on drugs, if we can just reel it in, we can chill that.
Well, I said most Republicans seem like they want to escalate it. Like Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy too, who's like, cut aid to Ukraine and use it to send special forces to Mexico.
Like that was one universal message that came from that stage, that we need to fight Mexico. And it's like, Do we though? And look, man, argue for changing the laws about an incentivized immigration program. That I can understand, and I think the American people are smart enough to understand that. I think that most people are getting to where libertarians are saying this is incentivized. If it was less incentivized, we could be a lot cooler about it. That's a reality. I want that. I want that. Let's be cooler about everything, man.
Yeah, we could be cool
I
about
passionately want people to be cooler about everything.
well, that'd be great, Tim. Like you should get someone to run on that message. Just, hey guys, be cooler about everything, would you?
Yeah, I'm gonna smite our enemies with the flaming sword of liberty, Kevin. That's my campaign platform. People want violence in their
So,
messaging, and if we can't
I was
give
about to
them,
say, like that seems like a very different type of message than be cooler about everything. Like
I
it's
know
almost the opposite of that.
we got to give the people what they want, brother. They
Smite with
want,
the sword of liberty,
yeah,
or like
yeah. They want that kind of messaging, and that's where Vivek is very subtle, but yet brings home this aggressive posturing of let's go to war with things. He wants to go to war with the culture war. He wants to go to war with Mexico. He wants to not go to war with China right now, but or no, go to war with China down the road. I don't know. And look, there's a bloodthirsty element of this, of fighting a proxy war with Ukraine. Mitt Romney, a guy who I can't stand, and it came out after the debate, like, hey, yeah, let's use Taiwan to fight China, and let's use Ukraine to fight Russia, and then we win without killing American kids. And it's like, what about all the other kids that are freaking dying, dude? Like, where is your I hate Mitt Romney. He's a guy. Thanks to Mitt Romney, he's another guy. That's why I became a libertarian. Their messaging is gross and bloodthirsty.
The people who do that, like who say like, yeah, like we should, who see it and understand it and want to push it as a proxy war to push like U.S. interests, like it's a pretty ugly thing to do.
He was proud of himself,
yeah,
Kevin. It was disgusting. I reviled it. Reviled is making a way back into my lexicon. Reviled is a great word. Like
reviled. All right, no, it's fair. Sometimes that is a word that is called for in politics.
Yeah, it is. A lot of times, if you will.
Yeah. All right. But we need to head to break, folks. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. I'm going to throw up this comment from John on YouTube. Repeal the 16th and we can discuss tariffs. All right. So repeal the income tax. John, that is how the country used to be funded. We used to do tariffs.
Sure.
That used to be the thing. You know, and I'll say this, like, okay, sure, maybe. The thing about like tariffs is if you're gonna have that, like, I would just treat it as like any other like general tax, right? Like, if we're gonna say like, okay, taxation isn't extortion and taxation is the price we pay for civilized society. If we're gonna go down that route, then like, okay, at least make it consistent. Just say we're not gonna try to engineer industrial policy with like different tariffs and different things, like with the sugar tariffs and the steel tariffs and the lumber tariffs and the prohibitions on imports of like baby formula, and like we end up so over engineered because of companies that have lobbied Congress for their specific type of carve outs. Like if you're just like, okay, 5% tariff across the board, if it's coming in, like that's just a tax. Okay, cool. Like people can plan for that. It can be consistent, you know, and you understand what it is. Okay, fine.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of like, look, would I gut the federal government even more than Vivek Ramaswamy? Sure. Okay. Like, but there is a certain level of, yes, we're going to tax something to fund the federal government. And I don't think it should be personal income tax. I don't think that the working man and woman of the United States should be carrying the freight. I'm a fan of a consistent kind of concept of taxation, something of a consumption tax that maybe doesn't kick in until you consume. You know, who knows? Let's just throw another $40,000. You know.
So I know people like will hate this, but I'm actually like, of all the taxes, I think like the income tax is probably like one of the least bad. And again, and that's like saying like which turd do I like best?
Fair enough. Fair enough. You're not like advocate. I get it.
Yeah, I'm not. But it's just, and here's the thing: is like, okay, tariffs, great. Like it not great. Like tariffs, what they do is they make it so it's more expensive for like us to trade. You end up with retaliatory stuff. There ends up being negative consequences. That corporate taxes, which like a bunch of people are like big fans of corporate taxes, but like the companies like I have no problem with companies making money, nor do I have a problem with like anyone making money, but like companies aren't necessarily just going to like reinvest that in just their CEOs. Like that's how people like think of it. It's like, oh, this company made a bunch of money. Like, okay, if all that money gets extracted as the CEO, like, or the board or whatever, like you could tax that as income. But I would rather the incentive be, oh, if we don't spend this and reinvest in our workforce, then that's it just kind of goes away. If we just give this to the CEO, then it gets taken up by the government. I'd rather create incentives for companies to reinvest in the workforce that they have and have like basically zero corporate tax. And same with like sales taxes, they can be regressive in that like you either have to have a complicated system where like you don't pay tax at the point of sale, then you pay it later, which is how some like VAT taxes work. And you end up creating a bunch of work around that, or like it ends up being regressive because like you buy your everyday things and there's only so much you can really consume, or you have luxury taxes. So you end up with like, okay, these things are taxed a bunch, but these aren't. Like income tax, like my preferred tax system in that like we should have a tax system at all is like a very, very simple, clear cut, like and low progressive income tax. That's it.
Yeah. All right. That's fair enough. I do want to bring up one atrocity that's been going on for a long time. And our friend Shelly on YouTube points it out. Like, where the heck has Congress been since the Korean War? We're not supposed to go to war without their approval. They have ceded that authority to the executive branch. And it's reprehensible. They're so busy fighting a culture war, right? That they do not ever do their jobs when it comes to deliberating war. They're signing continuing resolutions and spending bills at the behest of okay, so arguably Lockheed, Raytheon, like that's what's going on, and that's a real problem. These guys are not doing their job, nor have they been for decades and decades. And
and even when they do push back, because like occasionally you'll get like a war powers resolution thing, like they did that with the Libyan conflict with Barack Obama, and then the Congress said like you can't do that, and Barack Obama said, "Meh, what are you gonna do about it?" And then nothing happened. Like that was
they don't. And then we just so look, these things are correct. Then we juxtapose it with what they're doing to Trump and Kevin. That's why Trump is going to win in 2024.
Lord help us all. Speaking of max age for politicians, let's see. Do we got any other?
There's a bunch of great comments.
I know.
Man. War with China is the end of the planet. Arguably, I see where Shelley's coming from with that.
It's pretty dangerous. War with nuclear powers is a big deal.
We do have a treaty with Taiwan that.
Do we though?
Do we?
I thought like the U.S. didn't like officially recognize them. We just kind of like wink and nod, like we got you guys, because we give them like jets and stuff occasionally.
So let's disempower China and their aggressive military by out competing them in manufacturing and make them broke. And arguably, like there's stories out there that China is broke right now, that they're going through something of a recession. And look, when they have high unemployment, unfortunately, a communist response to high unemployment is going to violence, right? Like that's not just communists. I'm sorry, imperialists, statists, big government types, John Jay Republicans who believe in strong national defense find excuses for war when unemployment is high, and that's gross. It's another gross thing.
No, but so I don't think we actually have like a treaty with them. I think it's more like because there's a bunch of stuff where like the presidents won't even like it was a big deal when I think Biden took like a congratulations call from Taiwan. I'm trying to remember if it's Biden or Trump, but like China was like, you can't do that. You can't take a call from them because they're not a real country. You can't be congratulated by this fake imposter president.
It was Trump, and I think the mainstream media like agreed with China back then, if I remember correctly. Like, you shouldn't have taken that call. You're going to get us in World War III. And here we are, teetering on the brink of World War III. We've got we should save some of this for the show, but we got Rachel Maddow on one side saying if Trump gets reelected, we're never going to have another election. And then we've got Tucker saying Biden's getting reelected and he'll go to war to make sure it happens. And I'm just like,
yeah,
wow, can we just change the conversation to like something cool, like a moral imperative to be the largest manufacturer in the world because we do stuff so green. Let's just like try to change the narrative.
we should
Let's
do that. We should be better. That's fair. All
Okay.
right. Yeah, we should probably get back to the show though, and
Yeah.
you know, since we've been talking forever on. But yeah, I know John says like I didn't know that. I thought we had a diplomatic relationship with them. Yeah, like Tim's right, like because I just looked it up. Like it was Trump who got the phone call, and he tweeted like, "Thanks for the phone call from the president of Taiwan," and people were like, "You're risking war with China. It's so dangerous." Like, all right.
Anything, just like it's this game. I want the mainstream media to be eviscerated as well because they are part of. They're the fourth estate. Like they're part of the government now, and regardless of which side they're on, which side they present, they're part of the charade, the bread and circuses. Kevin, I know you like that.
Oh, I thought you were gonna throw out the word like cathedral or.
Yeah, I'll do that next.
So are people even using that anymore? I don't even know.
It seems to have faded. I mean, there was a legit Cathedral Caucus that had an active Facebook page, and I was literally blown away. So, you know, I'm like, are they making fun of me? What are they doing? Like, I wanted that to be fake, but okay.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure they're just making jokes. I think that was their thing.
I think. I
yeah, but no. So we're gonna go back into just a few seconds. We'll wrap up any other lingering stuff with the people who deign to rule us, and then we'll talk about a couple other issues. All right, be back in 5. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
I'm still here, Kevin. And look, Colorado Springs, Colorado had an interesting event this week. Anybody who's watched this show knows that I regularly wear my favorite, though getting largely beat up hat with a Gadsen flag patch on it. And it's, first of all, it just fits my head really well. And like,
that's what an old hat does, right? Like that's the hat with experience.
It is, man. It is.
And
so look, this kid, Jaden Gonzalez, a 12-year-old, right? And look, guys, let's talk about Jaden. Jaden is not like a large, robust 12-year-old. Like, obviously, Jaden is on the small side of 6-year-old stature. He's probably experienced some physical intimidation in his life. Jaden, though, leans very strongly libertarian, very pro two-way. And so he decided to share those beliefs with his fellow classmates by putting some patches on his backpack.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, bad results came about. The thought police crept in, kicked him out of school. He may never be able to go back to school, Kevin. Oh, wait, no, they resolved most of it, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I'm pretty sure the school caved because
the school totally caved. It was awesome.
They're like, all right, like, yeah, we thought we could just like, crush you for this, and
yeah,
no, but what they said about it's a charter school that he's going to, the Vanguard School out in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and he said that they said that the "Don't Tread on Me" rattlesnake, the Gadsen flag, was a racist symbol associated with slavery and the slave trade, and yeah, I mean, like it's.
They said, ignorant of history, they said that the Gadsen flag was associated with history now, or with slavery. There was some of the story, as always, right? When stories go viral, there's always a little bit more to the story. Jaden did have some semi-automatic flags, patches with flag representations of semi-automatic weapons on his backpack as well. Now, he respectfully, because those violated the school rules, respectfully removed them when requested, returned to school with the Dogecoin doggy, a couple of St. Michael's protectors patches, and of course, the Gadsen flag. And basically he's schooled the entire liberal world with this, and even got Jared Polis to make a comment supporting.
The Democrat governor of Colorado.
Yeah, the arguably most well. If you talk to some of the Beltway libertarians, Jared Polis can be pretty libertarian, even though he wants, I don't know, whatever.
I like Jared Polis because I have low standards for Democrats. I'll say that.
There you go. That's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
Yeah, I look at him and I was like, wow, you're pretty good for a
Democrat.
Democrat.
He's amazing. Honestly, he's amazing for a Democrat. Like, I'll
Yeah.
be fair to him. He does engage in culture war stuff that I don't think well, it doesn't benefit libertarianism, but he is like he was arguably equitable or equatable to Ron DeSantis with their COVID policy. They were very kind of like, hey, let's get this stuff reopened a little faster. Like, let's just be chill about this. And he made a big statement about the Gadsen flag, and he was certainly like, well, I do think that the teachers may have got, or the administration may have gotten that wrong. The Gadsen flag is an appropriate symbol of symbolizing the American Revolution, the unity that was required to start the revolution and the separation from Britain. Say, I'm paraphrasing and adding my own flair to it, but it was an okay statement.
Mm-hmm.
It was all right.
Yeah. Now, I'll say this. Legally, there's not a full right to free speech in school.
There's no right to free speech in schools. They can limit it to whatever they want. They can issue regulations through the administration.
Well, no, there's some limit. It's like the Tinker versus Des Moines case. So this happened a while ago. Is that like the original case was over students who were in black armbands protesting like the Vietnam War, and there might be other stuff, but this is the one I remember. And basically, a school can restrict speech when it creates like a substantial disruption, right?
Right.
So like you have to like be putting other students in distress, or it has to be distracting the students, or evoke violent imagery. So like the guns thing, like it starts to push on. Even though like you or I wearing a T-shirt out there, we can do that. And if someone gets offended, that's their problem, not ours. But in a school setting, you don't have that. And again, I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that is how schools operate. That like
Sure.
if you're a student listening to this, you're in high school, like in a public school setting or even a private school setting, you don't have especially in a private school setting. In fact, you do not have a full right to free speech in that situation. Like a private school, they can be far more restrictive. In fact, they can say your conditions for going here are following the rules, and if you don't follow the rules, see you later. Public school, a little bit more freedom, but yeah, if they consider what you're doing disruptive or violent, then they can restrict your speech.
Yeah,
they make it right, but they can do it.
Yeah, and there's no right to privacy in public school either. Like they can search your lockers at will. They can do whatever they want. That's the sign off. Now the charter school, let's just talk about charter schools in Colorado. They are actually, like, Colorado is something of a school choice state. So the charter schools are funded by grants that follow the students. So no out-of-pocket money for the parents, but they can pick a kid's school, and that also Jared Polis isn't attacking that. Like, he's not changing that. So you got to kind of give that guy props for that too. Like, the teachers unions don't like that stuff.
No, they don't.
But this is a charter school that did make this bold statement against this kid.
So charter schools are kind of like in between, a little bit of a gray area with this stuff. And yeah, like with this stuff, like generally, I think you should allow students to, express themselves in the way they wish. And especially with this, like really like Gadsen flag is a historical symbol. And I know that there are some racists who fly the Gadsen flag, but there's many more people who are just pro-liberty or historical enthusiasts who fly that flag and see that as a symbol of fighting against tyranny. And
yeah, and certainly the notion of I'm not dangerous until you step on me is kind of like a very acceptable statement to make for a pro-liberty individual. Like, I'm not going to hurt you as long as you leave me alone. Like, and just leave me alone.
And I have like the modified version of a Gadsen flag in my background. The "Don't Tread on Anyone" flag with the porcupine on it, but that is obviously inspired by it.
Yeah,
like it's just another iteration of that.
And sure, there's like a very historical significance. There was one of the symbolic calls to unity was a snake divided in parts. And Ben Franklin did this famous wood cutting that's worth millions of dollars about it now, where like separated we die, united, we stand. That's where some of our very basic premises of our allegiance and alliance in the United States came from. So it's pretty cool that this kid won this debate. It's a little like commentary about the society that we live in, that we're at a point where a 12-year-old kid and a Gadsen patch on his backpack become, news, right? Like,
Yes, the
it's
national news
kind of
thing.
wild that we're there as a society. It's kind of wild
Yeah.
and cool, but also like, why? So the question would be, Kevin, why are we there? Because we're seeing this emotional erosion of our rights that may not actually like translate into real legislation, but there's this perception, and certainly people are suffering from what appears to be a loss of property rights, and that's real, and increasing tax rates, and this constant narrative from the government of like your social contract is more important than anything that you can come up with for yourself. Like you have to adhere to the social contract, and I think that's probably what was the impetus for this. I want to call it overblown, but it's not. I'm also excited for this kid, and I'm also excited for people to be excited about it.
So I mean, I hope it passes quickly, and I hope like most of the culture, like it's just that like, yeah, that was dumb. The school overreacted, and they move on with their life, and they're like, yeah, we shouldn't have freaked out over this. Like, cool, and like, and then it's just normal that like a kid is able to express himself in a way that like wasn't substantially disruptive until the school decided to freak out about it.
Oh, that's a good point, right? That's a good symbol for the culture wars in our society. Like the school decided to freak out about it. That's what made this a mess. The kid was fine and just like, hey, I'm a little dude and I'm going to stand up for myself and don't step on me. That's it. Like I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like it's his right to be able to do that. And again, hopefully I didn't mischaracterize like the Tinker case, like really, because like the kids, like I think they won that case like with the armbands because like nope, they're able to express a sentiment, and even if that makes other students uncomfortable, that's fine. It's just like so something like if a bunch of students got together and blocked the hallways and prevented like kids from moving around, like that is no longer free speech, or again something that is like specifically violent and disruptive, like or threatening. That's not speech, but something like again wearing a Doge dog or Gadsen flag or other things like that like should in theory be fine for students to be able to express. Like it goes pretty far, and again much farther than like a lot of other places do, like outside the United States do as well. And like I said, hopefully like we look at this incident like yeah, like because again you got Jared Polis involved, you got like a lot of other people like yep, that school should let people do their thing. And it's just so weird that you have so many folks on the left who like used to be on the side of civil liberties, used to be on the side of like pushing the envelope on these things, who are now like so censorious about like some of this stuff. And they're just like, oh, like I think I associate that with like slavery and racist, therefore you can't have this thing that I've made this association perhaps erroneously with bad people, so you can't have this thing. And so Sam made this comment too, which kind of leads me to that is Sam on YouTube says that teacher could have Googled the yellow flag with snake. The mistake was more than not knowing is purposely chilling. A teacher alone cannot expel a student. More than an apology is needed. Like again, to me, like I think the teacher probably knew what it was and recognized what it was and like didn't care. Like in their mind, like that if it could be associated with something that like could be racist, therefore like it is not allowed because it will upset other students is probably as far as they thought through it.
Yeah.
Is what I'd imagine.
If I can add to that, though, I think that a lot of people in the country, and I think that it's probably accurate, that they feel as though teachers have moved past teaching, like an obligation to teaching, and have moved into this moral instruction. And so they want to be able to signal their virtue on every single issue that they possibly can. And certainly I think that that's where this starts for that teacher. And for that also is another reason why I'm thankful.
Right, they want to stand up for what's right and like
Sure,
make
man.
sure we're
And
fighting the
it's
bad
great that
people,
they
right?
can just be told to shut up and you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like move on. Like, stop being a clown. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think people are getting that kind of zeitgeist satisfaction out of it, where like the world said, "Hey, leave this kid alone," like to quote Pink Floyd.
Yeah, there you go. Listen, and I think like more people are getting that way. Like, man, I'm exhausted by some of this culture war stuff, and like, dude, just
I'm
like if you want to
sympathetic.
talk to him about it, fine, but like, don't turn this into a whole disciplinary thing. If you want to like ask the kid, because I don't want only a couple minutes left, but like, I remember like I flew this flag at like a Black Lives Matter rally, and like some people were like, "Hey, man, like what do you mean by this flag?" Like people just like went up and asked me, and like some people were like, "Oh man, that flag's like it's racist." Like, don't tread on anyone is racist. Okay, like sure,
Okay.
like so that yeah, I'm probably not gonna have a productive conversation with you. But other people like, what do you mean by this? Like, what does it mean? Like, is conversation starter? And I remember a guy Will, who's a party member around here, flew a "Don't Tread on Me" like a Gadsen flag at one of the Black Lives Matter rallies too. He's like, "No, man, that's don't tread on me. I'm with you. Like, yeah, I don't want the police to tread on me
Yeah.
or you." So
Me
like,
or you or any of us, right? We want a certain
yeah,
amount of freedom to express ourselves. I get it, man. That makes a
yeah,
lot of
but
sense.
some people are like, "Man, you can't fly that racist flag here. Why are you counter protesting?" He's like, "I'm not."
I'm not. You
Like, if you had a conversation with me,
Yeah. I'm just here to have conversations and let you guys know I'm running for office, and like you have valid points, but let's not burn down people's property. Like, there was certainly that going on too.
also that, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a bit of that.
There was a bit
got
of
a,
that. Just
got
like,
a bit rowdy.
yeah, it was
In
awful.
Rochester
Like, that piece of it was
specifically
awful.
too. But anyway, wasn't gonna like dig up that too much. Just like people like have these perceptions and assumptions about these things that I think are a little bit unfair. And having conversations to further like, what does this mean? And what does it mean to fight for liberty? It's gonna be more effective than shutting down speech and using the heavy hand of an institution to punish a student who's trying to figure out how to express himself. And again, this is a kid. Keep in
Yeah.
mind, this is a kid who's figuring out how to express his beliefs and his ideology in a way that like matters. But that being said, we do need to head to break now. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
I've never won an argument, and I've never lost a conversation. That's my tagline. I used to have it as on my Twitter profile.
That's a good one. And then
Yeah.
you decide, screw, I'm just going to troll people and just.
Arguably, Twitter is about trolling people, and yes, I have decided that I am going to troll.
You got your 5,000 followers now. Did you officially reach 5,000? Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
did.
you got your blue check.
Yeah, I got 5,000, a blue check, and then after that, like the numbers were exploding. Like, there was a day where I was like, the day I got my blue check, all of a sudden my numbers started dropping off, because I felt like it was because I was making fun of the GOP, and I just thought I had built some relationships with GOPers, and they didn't like what I had to say. So my following count was
Well, I thought you were just trolling Democrats and libertarians.
Yeah.
Who's this guy making fun of our people?
Yes, when I do that, it's great, man. And but then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. It kind of just snapped right back around, and some of it probably was trolling. Some of it was like, okay, look, a guy like Stephen King, as bright as he is, and as productive as a writer as he is, he's very easy to troll. And if you troll at exactly the right moment, it almost doesn't matter what you say, as long as you're making fun of him. And boom, people are like liking it, and they're playing along with you. Certainly, I advocated. He's bragging about one of his books is coming out, and I'm like, well, what all we need is like a commission where we draft old liberal white women to get rid of the gruesome parts that don't further the plot, and like it actually hit pretty well. Like, it landed okay. I did make a joke on the Redheaded Libertarians page about David Hogg, like, hey man, he's from Harvard, like, show some respect. That one didn't land as well. I had to explain myself a few times because they thought I was actually defending David Hogg, but of course I was not.
Yeah. Well,
but,
you got some hostile people when you talked about like you made a tax joke on it, like April Fool's Day or something.
oh my god! But that was epic. I love roads, and like that kind of thing. It was That was epic. I went outside and took a picture of my road, and the road in front of my house is like just a mess. It's a very small, low traveled road with not a ton of maintenance. I'm very happy with it. But man, I went outside, took a picture of my road. I'm like, I love my road. And like it was just playing a character for a few hours and God, I had a blast. It
Dude,
was
people got so
so
mad
epic.
at you.
Oh, people were
No, that was funny. I admit that was
livid,
funny.
livid. It was great. Like they were so offended by having a statist in their midst, like I had infiltrated the group.
Mhm.
You know, it was great, and it was fun, and literally picked up some people that I interact with now regularly through having fun, and that's important. You know,
Yeah.
so Twitter is actually fun. I can't wait for the money to start rolling in, Kevin.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna get all those. Don't you have to have like 5 million impressions or something?
Yeah, but you know, like that's easy for a guy like me. I'm just kidding. I'll probably never get there. It's certainly going to take a few months before I even get to offer subscriptions, start rooms, and participate in revenue sharing. So, you know, like it was just kind of like, all right, I checked the price and it's weird. You know, I got the blue check and my follower count, I went right up to 5,000 from like 49.70, and now it's up over 5,000. So it's a
Yeah,
miracle. The blue check has done wonders.
yeah, I'm sure it helps. I'm not that committed to Twitter. I'm a very casual Twitter user.
You are. You don't like arguably you don't use Facebook or Twitter as much as I do, and that's probably for the best.
No, it's mentally exhausting. Like, and you get like it's not real life. Like, actually, I really appreciate Oliver Anthony like responding to the Republican debate and people talking about his songs, being like, he didn't say go touch grass, but like he might as well have.
Well, he said go breathe fresh air.
Go
I'm not
breathe
sure that
fresh
there's
air
a
and
big
talk to your
difference,
family.
you
Like
know.
it's
It's like all
basically the
y'all can
same
go
thing.
breathe some fresh air because, like, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. He was one step away from saying it's like, hey, that looks like a uniparty to me. But
Yeah,
like, you know, he was pretty cool about it. He's like, I just made some points, you know, like
yeah,
that's it. It's like they're still trying to prop him up pretty hard, both sides.
I know.
More the Republicans trying to say,
They're
hey,
trying to
you're speaking for us. And
look at
he's
their
like,
guy, and he's just like,
am I
no, you
though?
ain't. You're the
Yeah,
guys I'm talking about.
yeah, he did that. He did do that.
No, I saw that. I was like, all right, I like him a bit better now. I didn't like
Yeah.
dislike him before, but I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. He came up with a great song. I would change that one stanza for him if I could, and like whatever, man. I'm glad for him, and I'm glad that the world that anti-establishment message. Like Kevin, you and I were anti-establishment as part of our programming. You're more polite about it, but now all of a sudden we've got like these big voices, even Russell Brand and Patrick McDavid. Like also, guys, if you like the PBD podcast, let's be clear. PBD is a refugee from like Syria, and he got here through an immigration system that we're all decrying right now. So, like, let's just chill. Like, again, people come here, they contribute to our society, and that's great. And some of them are going to be conservative, some of them are going to be liberal, some of them are going to be successful, some of them are going to work hard for a living, and some of them are going to take advantage of the systems that we have in place. That's
Yeah,
all of those things are
it
real
is.
because guess what? They're humans.
Yeah,
It's weird.
and people
Weird
who are
like
born
that.
here do the same thing.
Yeah, they're
Right?
gonna do just what your sister did and just what your mom did. Like that's what they're gonna do. So
Yeah,
that's it. And your brothers and whatever.
yeah, exactly. But we should go back and complete the actual radio show
We
portion of
should.
this,
This is gonna be a great,
and
like
yeah, a
great
bunch of extra. This is extra editing for me. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it, Tim.
But no, it's all right. We're gonna go back in 5. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
Getting therapy on a Wednesday night, Kevin. You and I talking about politics and taking a look at the world and trying to make sense of it from where we're coming at. A belief in freedom, a belief in reality, and a belief that everybody else but us has it wrong. And on that note, is it right that people like Mitch McConnell, these octogenarians, these clowns, these jokers, these fools, these people that are barely able to perform a function, Mitch McConnell's not even completing sentences, bro. Like, what's going on with this guy?
I had to check. Is he an octogenarian? Yeah, he's 81. He's 81 years old, Mitch McConnell, current Senate Majority Leader. And like if you haven't heard, like this broke on Wednesday, and if you listen to WYSL on Thursday evening, this is still a thing. And yeah, he had another weird moment where he's just like at a press conference and just he kind of freezes up. It was weird. Like his staff had to like kind of bail him out a little bit. Like he didn't seem to know what was going on. And yeah, it's a strange and like alarming thing, right? Like I don't particularly like the guy or his policies, but like you feel bad for him at some point. And we're like, dude, you should just retire. Like you're not well. Like same with Dianne Feinstein and several others. Like you're not well.
Yeah, arguably Joe Biden. Arguably, like, look, man, you can like Trump, but he's old, man. Like he's old. Like, and look, as I'm moving towards that oldness, right? Like I get it. Like things are heavier than they used to be. You know what I mean? Like
Joe Biden is
a real
80.
thing.
He's 80. Joe Biden is, and Trump is 77. Like they're older fellas.
Yeah, and they're from that generation of boomers where like the whole world got handed to them. Like, do we need that kind of mentality? Should we show? So here's the question. Right?
Well, actually, Biden's not even a boomer. He's too old to be a boomer.
Oh my God, that's true.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like he's not even a boomer. Like they're both too old to be boomers, and that's a weird thing. Like the boomers are younger than them.
Not by much.
Yeah,
my mom's a boomer. She's in her 70s.
But Biden is what is he considered?
I guess it would have broke right around 45, right? Like the 45 is where the boomer generation starts.
Something like that. But is it lost generation? Silent generation. That's what they call Joe Biden. Donald Trump is technically in the boomers.
Okay. Good to know.
So yeah, but yeah, Biden. I mean, it's all arbitrary, right? But right. But at some point, like there's a question, like like, okay, I know there's electoral accountability, right? Like people could just choose not to reelect Joe Biden or Mitch McConnell or the senator from California or whatever, right? Like they could choose not to do that, but other countries, they do have a max age. Is that something that's good? That's bad? Is it constitutional? What are your thoughts on, like, should we be setting a maximum age for running for office in the same way that we set minimum ages for running for certain offices?
Yeah, so that does call into question the electoral accountability. But at this stage in the game, when 92% of the people in this country disapprove of congressional and senatorial performance, and yet, I don't know, what is it, 98% of them get reelected? Like, where at some point should we have limits, and should we make a law that enforces? And will this crop of people, the people that are getting older, be able to get a law like that passed? Would they have any incentive to get it passed? It's an interesting.
And the chances is, like, how would they? Why would they do it? Because they're going to be throwing themselves out of office, right?
They're all rich, though. They're disgustingly filthy rich. They can eventually tap into their campaign funds if they retire. They've got to retire to be able to get their hands on that money. They could start a side business, pay their family millions of dollars, and advertise for other candidates. There's lots of ways for them to get their hands on that money. Like, go away, get out of office. Like, I do want them to go away willingly. Like, that's what I would prefer.
No, it'd be not like, because at some point in time you have to step down. That's what's happening with Senator Feinstein in California. Is they feel that they are so critical to the continued functioning of the country or their ideological battles that they can't let go. And that's the conversation around her. Is like, what happens if she leaves? Is someone who is bad and not going to carry the banner of her ideology going to get elected?
Well, look at all the crying about Ruth Bader Ginsburg not retiring when Barack Obama was president.
Right. They could have had another Supreme Court justice. She just stepped down.
Right. They could have.
Might have lost Gorsuch, but
Yeah. So
Or was he? Yeah.
arguably, like there is a drawback. And at some point, like, haven't you lived your life and shouldn't you just let the fame be passed along to Vivek Ramaswamy?
Vivek, we're going back to the Vivek. Like we gotta get that 38-year-old in there.
Honestly, I don't want him to be president. Like I said, he's got a certain distinct appeal. He does get into very war-based rhetoric. Like we're going to fight this war, we're going to fight that war. Sorry to bring that back around. Let's get back on subject. So, what do you think? Should we a constitutional?
Well, no. Actually, I think it is actually it is on topic though, right? Like so. Like we'll talk about it briefly, and then we'll talk about the constitutional side of this, right? Because again, average age of the House 57 years, average age of the Senate 64 years, average age of the country is like 36, right? Like so, like pretty different, different perspective, different outlook on like how they're going to be spending the next 20 years than most people in the country, right? Not exactly representative, and I've said this in other contexts, but like I think like the Republicans would probably be smart to select someone who is like seems like young and like has it together.
Sure.
Like if they pick someone like Vivek or Ron DeSantis or probably even Nikki Haley too, like and a couple others, like regardless of ideology, if they stand up and like they can string some coherent sentences together and seem like witty and quick next to Joe Biden, I think a lot of people are going to look at that and like, maybe they're more to put together than he is. Because Joe Biden, he's strange sometimes. He goes on like weird tangents. Like he supposedly went on like a weird one where he like talked about voting for the Civil Rights Act, like where he wasn't actually in the Senate yet. I mean, he's been there for ever, so it seems like he could have been there.
Yeah, that. I think even just that isolated existence. I mean, obviously, like my answer or an answer that I've flirted with or thought about a number of times is that imposing term limits could eliminate some of this corruption and abuse of power. That even though it's legal, these guys are all participating in what I call corrupt activities of crafting legislation for campaign donations and at the behest of lobbyists. If there's term limits, that would be somewhat disincentivized. And then, hey, you're 85 years old. You're only going to serve two things. Your people like you. Fine. Like then it makes more sense. Like you're a doddering old fool, but your people like you. Okay. You can't only do so much damage if you're only going to be there for 2 terms.
Right. I mean, that's fair. I go back and forth on term limits because I used to be like super pro term limits, and then I'm like, is it actually gonna fix anything? And does it make a stronger executive branch? I go back and forth on it, but and you could say the same thing about like the age limit thing, right? Like, okay, should like we impose this outside control on something that people want? Like, what if you do have an 80-year-old who is like super put together and with it, or technology advances sufficiently where like it doesn't like matter, right?
And they maintain their frazzle drip treatments.
Oh my goodness. Won't even touch that. But
sorry, I just had to get it out there.
But yeah, like so I don't know. Like I don't know that it's gonna fully fix the problem, but like yeah, there does come a certain point, and I don't want to like come off as ageist. They're great people in their 80s who are like my grandfather's one of them. Like he's a hardworking, sharp dude in his 80s, and like like not that he's trying to like run a country or anything, but like he's with it, right? But some people like don't, and that is just like a part of the human condition, that there is a decline at a certain point, and you have to like wonder, like when they're telling the senator from California, like, oh, just vote this way, like, and she doesn't seem to like know where she is or what's going on, like that's not cool, like that's bad. We should not allow that person to like make decisions in the U.S. Senate.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like it should be controversial, but again, we don't have the people in office right now who are willing and or able to do anything about that.
Well, that lends itself to the notion that the whole whole system. Like I flirted for a day or two on Twitter about a constitutional jubilee, and I actually went to Chat GPT where it came up with some verbiage. It didn't really pop off, but
like
a lot.
just an Article 5 thing.
Yeah, where you just kind of say, hey, everything's done except for the Constitution. If you want those laws back, you have to fight for them again because they're gone. And
Well,
I kind of that would be very
like
refreshing.
the sunset provisions, right? Like that. That's like just a rule that you have in every law. It's like, okay, every single thing that you have, you can set like 5 years, 10 years. Every single law that you have that has to be revoted on every time. Like, okay, like
Right.
this law will end in 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is if you don't vote to authorize it again.
Right.
And then that's a good way to say, like, do we really need this? Do we want to put our name on record as like reapproving this law? And if the answer is like, yes, this is a good law, then cool. Yeah, then do it. And then if it's bad, if it no longer makes sense, if it no longer serves the interests of the country, then just let it go.
Yeah, like they already kind of do sunset provisions on uh tax cuts, right? They put a sunset provision in so that there's an incentive to reelect the party that put the tax cut into place.
Right.
And so they pervert
Yeah, and it ends up being more
They
strategic,
pervert it.
right? Like I'm thinking of something like, all right, we have a constitutional amendment that says like every law has an expiration date. Right.
I'd love it. Honestly, I would love it. Especially with getting your vehicle inspected and traffic infractions. I'd be like a big
Do
fan.
we really need
repeal those
vehicle
laws.
inspections? Let's put that up for a vote.
Yeah, let's just have them all sunset. Just get rid of them. Start over. Let's see if we really need them. Kevin, they how much time do we got left in this show?
We have about 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
All right, perfect. No, just kidding. So arguably, people want strong messaging. So here's my strong message: let's set the age limit at 75, and then buy these guys a camper and move them out of. That's it. Get rid of them at age 75. Let's set a hard fast limit. They've got to go. They're obviously not serving us. They're not going to live with the consequences of their actions and the policies that they advocate for. Get rid of them. What do you think?
I mean, we could do that, right?
Yeah, it's tough because I don't really feel
nice.
comfortable taking that strong position because there is accountability to the populace. But how do we bring that actual accountability back where we don't simply reelect these jokers and clowns? And
people like their own member of Congress. Like,
there's
I think of
politics. How would I get elected when the guy that I want to run against has $2 million in his war chest and I have $0? I don't have a chance.
I mean, that's tough, but like I said, I think of someone like Louise Slaughter, who is my member of Congress for a while. She lived to 88 years old. She was elected 16 times to the House of Representatives. People liked her. Like people just, and that's the thing. Like people like their own member. Like why do they keep doing this? They like their own member of Congress a lot of times. Like, and again, to Louise Slaughter was like, depending on who you talk to, like on like either the center side or Democrat side, like either a tough, like old woman fighter who would say what it was, like she had a Southern accent, which was interesting, and then or like a sweet old lady, like whichever, like they project both in there, and they're like, oh yeah, that's why we have to like keep her in office,
right?
Obviously the conservative and Republican side didn't particularly like this Democratic member of Congress, but like people generally liked her. She, except for one election where it got very, very close, she usually did pretty well.
Yeah. All right. So coming up in the bonus show, and I know I want the radio listeners to join us in some of this activity. I do want to talk about Kevin, I think they've really got the Bidens this time. I think they've
all right. Teaser for the bonus show. So, but for the WYSL audience, we have to take off. But thanks again for joining us. We're gonna have some extra content for the folks listening on podcasts or folks listening online. But have a good night, WYSL audience. Take care. All right. Why are they got the Bidens this time?
Well, I mean,
They got
look,
him.
there's an alternative news agency building. There's a couple of them, like either Newsmax or one of them. One of their anchors has broken a story of
Mhm.
a promise of a video to be released soon, um, that will in fact incriminate Joe Biden and force him to resign. So on the one hand, you got Tucker Carlson saying the Democrats are going to go to war to make sure that Joe Biden gets reelected, or even go further and reenact a war power, some sort of war powers deal. We've got Rachel Maddow going down the road of Trump, if he gets elected, is going to be the most vengeful president of all time. And frankly, her, and this is something that kind of floated its way up through the ranks from Stephen King all the way up to MSNBC, depending on if that is the actual hierarchy. But that if Trump gets reelected, we will never have another presidential election. He's just going to live out his life as president and, enforce that with something. And it's like this incredibly useless level of conjecture that when at the end of the day, okay, I want to be very clear that the entire system is absolutely corrupt, and that we're arguing over corruption that's been made legal, or our Congress has failed to make it illegal. And that's what our real problem is, right? Like there's this what Hunter did and how he used Joe. And look, there's breaking news about like hundreds of emails and multiple code names where Hunter is like actively communicating with Joe all of his business deals, and Joe on some level is
Right.
endorsing them and encouraging
Right. And
people to
he
throw
may have
wads
been
of cash at
using,
Hunter.
yeah, and he may have been using like email aliases, right? Like he may have been like posing as like not posing it, but like using other aliases so they would be harder to foil that information.
Correct. Like that is obviously an act of corruption. Now,
Yeah.
is it arguably legal or illegal? I don't know. I don't even know. Like
If
the laws are
Joe
so wild.
Biden were in fact knowingly using like different email addresses under fake names to avoid freedom of information law requests, that I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that's actually illegal.
I,
Like, you have to like if you
I
work in government, particularly in a political office, like you have to keep records of it. Now,
okay.
it's a thing that a lot of politicians have done, and like everyone's kind of just like let it slide because both sides do it, but like it's not really like legal.
Right,
As
but
I
then
understand it.
arguably, like, does our justice system have the wherewithal to make the case right against a doddering old fool? Like, sorry, I don't like Joe Biden. I don't really like Donald Trump either, so whatever. But I don't know. So I'm very interested to see what the next few weeks brings. There are certain conclusions that we have to make, like the Russian collusion narrative was false all along, right? That Hunter Biden's laptop has legitimate problems and a legitimate behavior pattern that may have affected the election. Um, and that was literally suppressed by deep state operatives. And these things are kind of real. Like, I don't want them to be real, but in fact, they are, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, like if we're gonna rehash like the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, like I think a lot of it some of it, like I don't want to let like the deep state off the hook here, but like a lot
Sure.
of it was like Twitter employees are like, nah, that seems fake. Like we're just not gonna like because I thought like I didn't think it was real either. Like
No,
but
I know. I
people who
remember
made
that.
the
I'm
same
like,
assumptions who were
yeah,
like,
but what if it is, Kevin? What if it is? I remember having conversations about it. Like,
yeah,
guys,
and you're right on that. Like I was wrong because like I
yeah,
read that as like, all right, like so like this guy Hunter Biden left his laptop for some reason with him, and then like didn't pick it up for some reason, and made a copy, and he gave it to
yeah.
like Rudy Giuliani. Like, no, man, that sounds too weird.
No, the story of accessing the laptop, somehow that to me still sounds fake, okay? But the
Yeah,
fact that the laptop is real and it exists and it has all sorts of incriminating evidence, That is real. Like, regardless of
Yeah, no,
the
that
way they
was like I
got
said,
it.
it sounded fake, like, it sounded weird, like, again, this guy
Yeah,
made a copy of his laptop that Hunter Biden left with him for way too long, like, it's a weird story,
it was a
but
weird
ended up
story.
being, real, but and, like, Twitter, like, overcorrected, like, "Ah, this is fake news, so we're going to, suppress any reporting of this news instead of just allowing the discussion to happen."
And certainly there
Um,
were actually pictures of him engaging in crappy activity, which honestly, though, Kevin, like from my perspective, is not the reason that people should not have been voting for Joe Biden. The fact
no,
that Joe Biden is engaged in decades worth of lobbying, that the fact that Joe Biden was a plagiarist, the fact that Joe Biden, authored the 92 crime bill, that Joe Biden is lots of things, and many of them are not really good. And the entire world seems to be unaware of that. That's why we shouldn't have voted for him, not his kids' bullshit behavior, even though that
right,
whole collecting money thing is gross. Like that's
yeah,
but no Republican is like, hey, you know what Hunter Biden did is technically legal. What we need to do is write laws to make it illegal because arguably at some point some member of their family can benefit from those same laws. And guys,
it's the problem, it's like, "Alright,
that's fucking
are
reality,
any of
bro.
my children doing this?"
Yeah, wow, that would be great. If Tiny Tim could make $5 million a week working in Ukraine, seeing the world, I would be really happy for him. And if it was based on a connection to me where I'm making a couple $100,000 a year, I would still be happy for him. Like it would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
That's gross. See how easily I'm corrupted, Kevin?
Yeah, I know, right? That's alright. Vote for Tim.
I'm corrupt, but
It's
at
gonna
least
make
I'm
his
honest
it's gonna
about
make
it.
his children, like, super rich.
Yeah, I want my kids to be super wealthy and to not have to work that hard. Like, I want them doing cool things like meeting the mayor of Moscow and getting a bag of cash. Like, that would be awesome. The stuff of storybooks.
That's right, that's gonna be great on the gram.
Yeah, and then I
Um,
got my stepkids and like my grandkids. Like, all of those kids could benefit from this relationship.
there you go.
And there's
You
no
gotta
creepy like shower stories with me either. Like, I want to be clear about that.
no, just the bags of cash.
Just bags of cash, please. That's all. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, that's seems very reasonable.
And then you could benefit from bags of cash. Your family could benefit from bags of cash. We have a relationship. You could be a lobbyist or something, like it would
There you
be
go.
great.
That's how it
Yeah.
goes. That's the system. That's you're
That's,
saying the quiet part out loud, Tim. You're not supposed to do that.
I know. I'm just an honest dude. That's the way it is.
You're never gonna succeed in politics that way.
Oh, I know. Thank God for that, though, really. It would tarnish my soul, I think, Kevin, to be honest with you.
That's
What,
fair.
you know, what there is of it, I guess. Arguably.
Um, so Shelley put us like she put up a comment on YouTube. But when two presidents have classified documents at homes, both tried to sway the election. Why is only one of them a badass mugshot? And I'm gonna I want to rehash the whole classified documents thing, but I do want to say, yeah, like let's talk about the Trump mugshot thing.
Oh my God. I do agree with Charlie Kirk that they perhaps made a mistake here with this. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, because the mugshot was for the Georgia charges, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
so those are the charges related to his RICO charges, right? It's a
Sure.
RICO case, the conspiracy to like try to I'm trying to think of the right words. Not intimidate government officials into interfering with government business or whatever.
Yada,
But
yada, yada.
yeah,
No
yeah.
one's
So
hearing that part of it, Kevin. They're saying Trump is being persecuted by the Department of Justice.
well, they would be wrong because he's being persecuted by a local DA.
Soros backed.
Might be. Well, is she? Is she actually? I mean, she might be. Like, I know people like throw that out, like they dismiss that as a conspiracy theory, but it happened in Monroe County. Like,
Sure.
the Democratic DA candidate got like a boatload of money.
Yeah, I mean, the New York City DA, that Alvin Bragg, certainly
Yeah.
was supported by Soros-backed, Soros-funded groups. Like, and then they play the sophist game of, well, technically they didn't donate to my campaign, and it's like they
Well,
handed
yeah.
out, they went door to door for you, like
Well,
they
yeah. It's
spent
like
$1.5 million,
super
bro.
PAC money that like they ran ads.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
they had operatives on the ground that they were paying $40 an hour to say, hey, this is the guy we want elected.
Yeah,
So,
but no, the mugshot thing though, like I'm into it for the memes.
yeah,
Yeah,
nice. I love it. Yeah.
the memes are great. Like I know it's
I do feel like maybe they didn't think this through. I do feel like the people in our country feel persecuted. Now, whether it's real or not, or whether it's an exaggerated emotional response to what's going on, I'm on the side of that there is an increasing authoritarianism, that some of this feelings of persecution coming from our government feel real on every strata of income, on every issue of property rights. All of these things are real on some level. So they're kind of like, now people are like, well,
I,
now Trump's one of us,
I don't disagree with you on the first part. I do disagree that like Trump is like caught up in that the way us everyday folks are. Like he is in a class of like literally he was the president. Like and maybe again, like sorry,
Honestly, like,
he is in a different category than everyone else.
he is, and arguably his business acumen did not pay off for.
No.
I think some of it could be written off as bravado, unintentional. They're still going to have to prove that their argument is based on him knowing that what he was advocating for was illegal and fraudulent. And I
Right.
just feel as though, I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah.
I knew the justice system was gonna get ruined when OJ didn't get convicted and people were like, "He's freaking guilty," and I'm like, "You don't know that. Like,
Deep
you don't,
cuts.
you know what I mean? Like, I just knew. I knew this. I knew we'd be here someday."
Yeah. Start with the OJ case. That's where it all begins.
I
No,
know, man.
I did post a long article of it if folks are up for reading on the Kevin Wilson Libertarian page from Popat of all people, who no longer on Twitter, but that's what he used to do on Twitter, is Popat, Ken White. And he talked about like, he's like, Trump probably committed a bunch of crimes and probably deserves to be prosecuted, but like the way they pursued this one is bad. And it's a massive overstep that is usual for an overstep for a DA. Like they added in a bunch of stuff that they didn't need to. And it's something that they do all the time to try
Right.
to set up like essentially like motive for this stuff. And they're overextended because in this high profile case, people are going to be taking a way closer look on it, and they're not going to just like get away with it in the same way. And so and I love this quote too. Is that like this quote towards the end? He says, like, in a sane, perfect world, Trump supporters or anti-Trump folks would look at it, would have an epiphany, say, "Holy shit! If they can do this to Trump and his crew, what are they doing to regular folks? Is my trust in police and prosecutors misplaced?" Because again, they are going a bit too far. They are stretching their case here. They could have made like a simple, clear, nice case that didn't include like RICO and a big, banner headline thing. Instead, they've blown it out of proportion, which is what they do. And usually they try to coerce you into accepting a plea for a lower charge, and they get a conviction and, a notch on their record for them to run their reelection campaign. But this is so high profile, that's a risk.
Well, what it may make people more aware of prosecutorial overreach as a normal course of business for these clowns and jokers, and it's something that's long offended me, and should offend not just me, but conservatives, classical liberals, Democrats. Prosecutorial overreach, just because it's someone you hate, you are not a good person if you cannot defend someone that you hate from prosecutorial overreach. Like,
Yeah.
that's a reality. This is an awful system.
It would be great if people like had that consistency, but again, because politics gets funny, like the Democrats suddenly become like hardcore throw them in jail folks, and the Republicans are like criminal justice reform advocates, but for just this guy.
I know, bro. It's crazy. Some of it is absolutely bananas. Like, and that was some word they were, the Democrats threw it around, and now the Republicans are throwing it. We're turning into a banana republic. And it's like, arguably, I've known that for a really long time.
Yeah, someone's been paying attention. But no, it's it. But check out that article. It's interesting in terms of like the specific ways in which the DA overreach here is like a pretty common thing. But Trump's high profile enough and has good enough lawyers where he may get out of this, which is probably going to be work. Because again, I think he deserves to get punished for like his conduct in Georgia, but they're gonna fumble the bag here.
Sure. And then the judge says, "Hey, the day before Super Tuesday is your first your evidentiary hearing or whatever." And it's like, oh my
Although
god,
he tried to move it, and he's like, "Hey, can we just move this to 2025?
yeah. Well, just also
Just move this
hilarious.
to like after the November election." Judge is like, "No, we're not
Also
doing that."
hilarious. Like it looks bad. People don't always invest in getting the whole story,
Yeah.
but it just looks awful. It looks awful. We'll have a referendum on Trump here shortly. I
Goodness.
would so arguably, right? Like milk toast Ron DeSantis is arguably my most preferential candidate if in fact we have to have a Republican that wins, right? If people aren't going to wake up and elect a libertarian right now, I would say I would like the Republicans to have. Actually, I like Vivek. Never mind, I'm joking. Vivek is great. He's hilarious. When he said to Nikki Haley, "Enjoy your job at Raytheon," it was just it was poetry, brother.
He's got zingers.
It was
His actual policy is messy, and he changes his mind on stuff and like straight up lies about stuff. But he's got zingers.
Sure,
and so is Trump. He's young Trump. There you go.
He is young Trump with I think he's a little more polished, honestly. Trump literally rambles on, and people are like, yeah, and I'm like, bro, he just contradicted himself like 3 times in one sentence, and none of it made any sense. And you're telling me that was great. It's always been a weird phenomenon for me. But Vivek does do some interesting things. There is always a call to action when he's talking, and one of his big campaign premises, and like I get that this is how you frame a campaign to win, but it's like we've been running from stuff. And it's like, what I want to do is lead us towards a brighter future. And it's literally poetic the way he delivers it. It's awesome.
You're getting sucked into the platitudes, man. Don't do it.
Yeah, no. I'm susceptible to his platitudes because he offers zingers that make me laugh. And he attacks, like, tears down his opponents first. Then he offers a platitude. And look, I'm not particularly susceptible to platitudes, but I think that somehow libertarians have to learn how to win elections. And I'm not sure the way that if in fact we have any hope at all. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not optimistic about any of this.
I know.
I look at all the candidates, and they're all like, "Yeah, bomb Mexico," and I'm like, "Oh, okay,
as a libertarian, I will bomb Mexico harder. That's just not. I'm anti-war, but I'm willing to bomb Mexico if you'll vote for me." It's like, it's not gonna work.
I just think of that Simpsons meme, the "I'm in danger" meme. That was my feeling watching the debate. The Ralph meme.
That is. We are though, like every day. So.
Yeah, that's not optimistic about it. Democrats, they're not gonna. I mean, I said you got Biden, RFK, and Marianne Williamson.
The self-help guru who wants a welfare state. It's like,
yeah,
that doesn't really work for me. Like something about that's inconsistent and incoherent.
If Joe Biden dropped out and Jared Polis started running for president, I might vote for Jared Polis. Like, I might think he's better than like any Republican running. If there weren't a good libertarian, or if like the libertarian didn't get on the ballot in New York or something.
He's like a culture warrior, though, dude. Like, I get it. He still has an authoritarian streak, which all elected politicians have to appease their base, and people enjoy authoritarians.
He's a libertarian memer, though. He's retweeting the Libertarian Party stuff.
All right.
That name like one other Democrat like doing any of that, other than like I don't even think RFK has ever retweeted any LP stuff.
No. RFK has flirted with libertarians and libertarians really appreciate the attention from him, and that's okay.
And like the mainstream Republican Party, I don't like any of the mainstream candidates. I don't think any of them have really like even pretended to be libertarian anymore.
No. Look, Vivek goes on long-winded explanations of where he's very libertarian and why. Okay,
I mean, he went on Fifth Column podcast, which is a very libertarian podcast, and made his case, I guess.
Arguably, arguably, he has some platitudes or future policies that he would implement that are, in fact, on some levels, libertarian. There certainly is the right to try in medicine, the FDA clown show of 10 years and $1 billion unless Fauci gets 400 million or whatever the deal is, and the pipeline of right now Scott Gottlieb went from the FDA to Pfizer, and no matter what, whether it's legit or not, it looks awful. And after the Sackler case, where the FDA regulator that approved the belief that heroin and opiate derivatives were not addictive, thereby made them widely and readily available, got a $400,000 a year job when that money was like God money back then. You know what I mean? Like, there's this level of corruption that it is real. So, and Vivek's kind of painting a pretty good case about it.
Yeah, fair enough. I shared that one podcast. Again, this is to a libertarian crowd. So,
yeah, I hated him when he was on Dave Smith. I really did, but I've heard him with I want to say Jordan Peterson. I still hated him, and then I heard him with I think it was Russell Brand, and I'm kind of like, all right, I'm starting to hate him less. I might just be getting used to his mannerisms. And
maybe also I'm like, it's easy to get sucked into. Like, again, he's younger, he has energy, he wants to fun. He wants to like change some stuff, and it's not contagious, but like it. Yeah, no, his enthusiasm's contagious. Like that.
It is.
That's what it is. Like, so he's charming, and that might be good enough for politics. Like,
yeah, we as far as the bar is, like, look, we've got Mitch McConnell running the Senate. Like,
right,
Vivek looks very appealing.
That's by comparison,
but off of a very low bar, and that's a reality. Like, I don't know how, like, when you have a guy like Massey, I don't understand how he's not the most popular guy in the country, because A, he presents himself well, B, he's intellectual, C, he's funny, right? And D, he's actually consistent to principles. And so I don't understand how the whole world doesn't see that. And I don't even always agree with all of his principled stances, right? Because I want I fall back on that old like smash him with a hammer kind of thing. But he's got.
I take Massey over like anyone.
Yeah,
the options right now. Like, he's not perfect, but he'd be way better than anyone else right now.
Yeah, honestly, he's as close to great as I see out there, as far as being philosophically consistent, as far as like being able to laugh at the system, laugh at himself, and fight battles. Like, he's okay with that, and I think those are qualities we look for, or at least I look for.
Mm-hmm. All right, but I think we should call it a night. It's getting late. We gotta edit this thing.
Yeah, mud tastes great compared to manure. Exactly, Shelly. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
A good note to end on. All right, thanks, folks, for listening tonight. Appreciate y'all being here. We're gonna call it an evening. Have a great night, folks. Take care.